There's a question that comes up in spiritual seeking. It's basically, what do you know for certain? And it's actually fairly challenging because the mind can come up with lots of answers. And at some point you will realize that they're all wrong. In other words, they're all conceptual. They're all something that you know, meaning you have an awareness of it. And there's a incompletion to that. In the simplest sense, what we know, and in a way, it's something that we don't believe, that we don't come to through analysis or through thinking, is what people call I am. You know I am. And in a way you know I am, in a sense that even precedes your name or your personality, or your history or your future or your drama. There's just a sense that I exist, that I am. And the question mark may be, who is this I? But let's leave that alone. There just is I am. And another part of that sort of says to us, this is. It's much easier to say this is than this was or will be. Because that's conjecture. Well, certainly not, it's conjecture about what will be. The idea of was is somehow a storehouse of memories, of images, that your mind believes occurred. I was doing this yesterday, because clearly there's a recollection of some kind in the mind that's saying this is what I was. Or you can go back to you when you were a child, this is something that I did when I was 4, and there's a real strong sense of that being who you are, but let's just question for a moment the power of memory. And what you remember of what you are is definitely an impression of something. And there's a deep, powerful belief that something happened at another point in time. But what's being recollected now is happening now. It's not then, it's now. So the fact that I know I remember being in bed with my grandmother when I was 4, when she was dying, and her telling me how much she loved me, which was a really powerful moment. And I have a sense that I know that that happened, that there was an I back when. But I have to say, the image I have of that moment is very, very fragile. It has only so much resolution in it. I can't get the whole room. I kind of get the bed that was there. I have little tiny impressions that were very, very warm and loving. And what really resides with me is the feeling, which is actually very present tense. The wasness of it feels real, but what I know for certain is that I am speaking about it now and feeling it now, and that I'm very much in present tense relating to what we may call past tense. So I'm not going to deny that it happened. I'm only going to say that what I know for certain is that I'm sitting here now talking about something that I believe happened at a certain point in the past. But what's really relevant in all of our lives is this present tense moment, because it's undeniable on some level. We know it to be true. We don't understand it, and we don't even have to interpret it. It just is. The identification with I as a separate entity, as a personality, as a name, as a being that is in some ways watching and observing the world, feels like it's absolutely true. I am here, looking at you, talking to you, that there is a body here, there's a mouth here, there's eyes here, there's ears here, and something is expressing itself through this body-mind, which I could very easily call me. The I has a me. And this me is talking to you. And the thing that's interesting about the me is that it has a name, Bruce. It has what it thinks of as a history. It has what it's concerned about, which is a future. It has hopes, ambitions, worries, fears about what will come. It has a kind of attachment to parts of what was. But sitting here, there is me, and then there is what is speaking, which is I am speaking. And the I that is speaking is so involved in the speaking that there is no sense of the me unless I decide to bring it into focus. If I sit here and go, well, who's doing this talking? Well, it starts to become complicated. It loses its simple thrust because now there is a me doing it. And truly, while this speaking is happening, there's no room inside for that reaching out into a history that would say Bruce is doing something. It's just not there. The speaking is happening. It's just happening. There's nobody making it happen. It is happening. It is arising of its own nature. And it is free to express itself, and the body that is here expressing it has as much to learn from it and as much to gain from it, if you will, as the parts of my being or of being that are sitting in this room. It is a shared oneness. It's a shared experience of happening. This is happening now. It's remarkable that it is happening. And if one is sitting there listening is an interesting act, because listening is either I am listening, and then that has me in it, it has a name, and the way you know you're listening is if your mind is interacting and saying, oh, that's interesting, oh, I like what he just said, oh, that's kind of compelling, oh, I don't believe that, that thing that goes on basically is not listening. One calls it listening, but it's actually dialoguing with or intersecting with or in some ways engaging what's happening. But when you get really quiet inside, which can happen sitting in this room, the thing that is speaking ends up speaking to a thing that is listening, which is the same thing. No one is there. No one is there listening to and analyzing any of it. It's just flowing in, cycling, if you will, pure I am going into I am. There's one voice, there's one set of ears, there's one expression, there's one listening, there is just the what is. Just what is. Now, when we go downstairs for brunch, there might be an opportunity to start to cognate all of this thing and to bring it back into the person, if you want to do that. Or you can let it go so deep inside that there isn't a kind of dialogue with what is. It's just like, aha. What is right now will become past tense. When it's past tense, it will be a different kind of expression. It will be registered, it will be stored, it'll be put somewhere into the memory banks that will hold on to it for a little bit of time, and then it will start to deteriorate somewhat. At some point we will not have access to it. It's a temporary arousal. But the thing that's not temporary, if you will, is what's happening right this second. It is temporary in the sense that it's passing, it's happening, there's voice, speech, something coming through, and it's evaporating almost the second that it happens. If you're not grabbing hold of it, it's going in and past you. The listening is occurring, but it's having a living, immediate quality. That is, in a sense, as close as one gets to truth in life. It is this, 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 this. It's not was, it's not will be, it's this. It's happening. It's happening. This is what it is. And there's nothing trying to modulate it on any level. It's just happening. And in truth, your whole life is happening that way. All the time. It's just that in these microseconds that we have in our lives, we tend to grab it. We tend to hold it. We tend to store it. We tend to dialogue with it. We tend to reject it. We do all of these things that we take the moment as it comes and we do something with it. And the thing we do with it is we make it into something that will ultimately become me, that will have your name attached. So this barrage of stuff is coming out, and there's a part of you that is one with that for the millisecond that it's taking place, and then there's something that separates from it almost immediately by making it you. And of course, you can't take the whole thing in and make it you, because the whole thing is everything. It's everything. There's nothing but this. So what do you take in from all of this? Well, a little tiny piece, an interpretation of it, an impression of it, and you store that. And you build up a whole series of storage units that will become more and more you. After a period of time in life, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of you, and it's a lot of stored impressions because you couldn't hold on to the totality, because you cannot hold totality. Totality is big. It's vast. It's eternal. So we make a finite thing, which is a person, and when I ask, what is the one thing you know for certain? It's that I am. What does that mean? I am this. That's as much as you know. I am this. And you know this is. That's for certain. Everything else is a storage system or a looking at something in the future, and it's not here. It's really not here in the moment. It is to the extent that you are spending this moment storing and fearing and thinking and wondering and worrying and doing all those other things. You can do that. You can make this moment about that. Or you can do what happens in this class, or what happens when you meditate, is you get really quiet. You let go of that cognitive self, the manufacturing of the person me. You just let go of it, and you experience something very pure. Very, very pure. I am, or this is, which is the same thing. Everything else separates you from that. Everything else turns it into a thing. But what's really happening as we sit here in silence is there's no thing. And let's make that very specific. There's nothing. There's nothing. There just is. What is this? What is this? Well, that's where we get into cognation. Why is this? Cognation. How is this? Cognation. We love that. We love sitting around going, why, how, what? It's really an extraordinary thing. And the most remarkable thing is we come up with answers. We come up with answers. This is life. This is mine. This is how it is. This is how it should be. This is what it might have been. This is where I wished it would have gone. All of that's coming up. It's all coming up inside us. And in a sense, as that's all coming up and we're all caught up in that, that's deeply inside what is. But we're missing it. We're missing its what isness because we're caught up in analyzing and making it something. And this no thing, this nothing, is becoming something. And it's becoming something that we become wildly identified with. Emotionally and psychically and physically identified with. And we come away thinking we know, or the me knows. And then that me will get challenged by all these other things that come up around you. And so you may develop new me's, a new awareness. I'm not the person I was yesterday. Read People magazine. You'll see the people who suddenly have a whole new me. You know, they got a new me last week. They completely got it. They got the diet. They got the insight. They sold them something. The new me, and we have a culture of becoming new me's, but they're not new me's. They're new configurations of this thing that thinks it knows. What's so powerful about sitting still and just being I am, or being what is that there's no room in that for knowing or understanding anything. And in fact, you realize that the minute you start to know or understand something, that you have separated from the truth of just what is. And that separation causes, well, as Buddha would say, suffering. Going back to the simplicity of just this moment and just being is a source of enormous knowing, but it is not a source of understanding. It is not a source of knowledge as much as it is a source of being. The need to know is very much part of the human experience, and we all think we need to know, and we all get caught up in it. We have a whole society that's all about learning, it's all about education, it's all about analyzing all of this. And yes, it has a real place, it has value, but it will not bring you to truth. It will bring you into the world of impermanence. Because everything you will learn will be true only for a millisecond. As you move on, it will be something else. It will keep changing because it will be related to time and space, and ultimately we are not in time or space. Time or space, as you will understand when you sit absolutely still, are within you. When you are in absolute stillness, there is no space, there is no time, there is just what is. I am. The idea of nothing, of being nothing, of knowing nothing, is very unsatisfying to a human being. If I were to tell you, as scientists have and do, that you are not solid, that you are not made out of dense matter, you are more space than solid, that you are atomic, molecular, neutrons, protons all moving around in space, that there's no, I'm not sitting on a solid piece of furniture, there's no real floor, there's no chair, there's no body. If I were to tell you that, which is scientifically very real, what does that do for you? Does that give you peace? Does that give you serenity? Does that give you a way of living? Well, you shake your head yes, which is very sweet. But for most people, knowing that you are nothing, you are just energy, is not satisfying. It's not satisfying. Why? Because this energy that you are has emotion, feeling. It suffers, it wants, it desires, it has love, it has sadness, it has all this stuff in it. So if I were to look at you and say, forget that, you're just atoms, you're just molecules, what does it matter? What does it matter? It all turns back into nothing, it all comes out of nothing. Even molecules are mind stuff, and in the end, it's no thing, it is absolute, people call it emptiness. What does that do for you? Well, nothing, I think. It does nothing. And this is where the real core of this interestingly dynamic situation we're in, this thing of being human, this thing of being something for a period of time, this thing of having manifested as a body, mind, and a me, a me. Every one of us is a me. The great spiritual teachers tell us, no, you're really I am, you're really what is. In other words, you are all that is, period. You are the totality. You are energy. You are consciousness. You are awareness. We go on with words, and you can realize that. But once you have realized that, they call it liberation. But let's talk for 1 second about liberation. What are you being liberated from? Well, from untruth. You're being liberated from the untruth of the universe that you've created, which is a mind event that is temporary, will be born and will die. There's a lot of suffering in that, so you will find liberation from that suffering. But you will also discover, as you get liberated, that there is what is, and there is I am. It will make no sense to you. It will have no ultimate meaning. It will not be diagnosable. It will not be something that will come together in any way. The only thing you will have is an absolute, unshakable sense that there is only one. And it is unknowable, and it is unknown, and that everything you can say about it, everything, including everything I'm saying, will be wrong. Everything. And there's a kind of freedom in that. There's a kind of freedom in going, I don't know. But I do know this. I am, this is, and then I'm going to add to that. There are others who are reflections of and part of what I am, and some of them do not know liberation. They do not know what this is. One of the key things that happens when you become liberated is, and I've talked about this a lot, there is an awareness of what I just call, wow, and thank you. It comes out of not knowing anything, but being aware that existence is. In another sense, we'll give it a name, and we'll call it God. And you will be aware that all you are seeing and all you know and all you are touching, all you are breathing, all you are seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling is God. And you will realize that you are now and have always been and will always be in the presence of God. That's what you know in realizing. And then you look around you at the people around you and you see those who know that and those who don't know that. And rather than feeling superior to those who don't know, you actually feel unbelievably compassionate. And the one thing you really want to do more than anything is reach out to them, not necessarily physically or in some community service exactly. What you want is to let them feel the love of being. What you want to do is hug, embrace, acknowledge, be with, be present with those who are suffering, or who are ignorant, or who are lost, or who are frightened. And you want to be with that. That's what you want. And that's the expression that comes out of this wow and this thank you. It just wants to be there for those who don't know wow or thank you. And tell them as best you can, and sometimes you can't say it, you can only kind of be it, that there's something so real and beautiful in the universe. And you are that. You are that. Not I am that. Because that doesn't do it. You are that. And that doesn't do it either, really, to be told it. But be there in any way you can, in any opportunity that's provided, to take on and take in what's in front of you. That's the spiritual life. That's the life this awakening experience leads you to want to live. We had a remarkable week with the Pope traveling through 3 cities in America, giving the most beautiful homilies and the most beautiful preachments that you can almost ever hear. I mean, so exquisite, so simple, so walking the walk, talking the talk, living it, and being present in the world. And in a way, the world stopped for a second to hear this message that is the very thing that's being talked about here, and that each of you will talk about when you feel connected to yourself, when you feel I am, when you feel this is, and you feel wow, thank you. That's what he's been doing. He's been walking around in a very big way, communicating that message, and you can feel people hearing it. And I just felt so grateful and so moved to feel, if you will, that God, that what is, decided to use the airwaves to speak this out to the people, to share it with people. It's so beautiful that that's happening. How many people will hear it? I don't know. I kept spending time staring at the faces of people who were hearing it. So fascinating, so interesting, because there were people who only wanted to get the moment on camera. There were people who only wanted to touch and know that it was real through touch. There were people sobbing. There were people like present. There were people thinking, I'm present. I mean, there were so many reactions to this sense of God expressing itself through the media. And it was so beautiful to watch. And it just reinforced for me, this Bruce guy, that I and each of you can go around and do what the Pope did. The message of the Pope, and it was so beautiful because he kept saying this to people, pray for me. Pray for me. In other words, he wasn't saying, I have it to give. He's saying, I know nothing. I know nothing. Please pray for me. And I will share the nothingness that I know, the no thing that I know. And he did it beautifully. And the message ultimately is, wake up to that in yourself. Wake up to it in terms of who you are. The world is trying to speak to us. It's speaking this voice right now. It spoke the Pope's voice. It speaks through your voice. Don't let it speak the stuff you think you know. Let it speak your unknowing. Let it speak what you don't understand. Let it speak your heart and your reaching out and your beauty and your humbleness and your simplicity. Let it reach out in everything you do. And whether you awake or don't awake, look, awakening is, it's all energy. Done. Okay? You're awake. That's all you need to know. It's all energy. You don't exist separately from it. You are one with all there is. There you are. Having that experience is wonderful. Not having that experience doesn't change the fact of it. It's what you are. Live your life accordingly. Live your life in a place of sharing your unknowing, your wow, your gratitude with everyone around you, and let it percolate and see what it does. Some people will be touched, some people will not. That's not your job. Your job is be real, be you, be available, be present, and you will affect the world in the way it needs to be affected through you. And don't think you have to be the one. You're just a one that will affect life and make it a much better place for people to be. The truth of awakening does not change your behavior. The truth of awakening just makes you more conscious and available and ready to share what you don't know as openly as you can. That's the journey we are all on, and it really helps to get rid of, as much as possible, your stuckness in the past, your fear of the future. Just get quiet and just be here, and let that be the place you reside, and come from that as deeply and as often as you can, and that'll be an amazing life. Any questions?
Well, whenever you say we're nothing, and you said, does that disturb you? To me, nothing is oneness. And if you just replace that word, it sounds very different.
That's right.
It sounds very different. I'm oneness. Well, that's something to go, yeah.
Well, the problem with that is its identity. I am not just me, I'm oneness. And that owning of oneness becomes problematic. It's as big a problem as owning this, because it's identifying with something and thinking it knows something. I'm telling you, nothing knows nothing doesn't know anything. It doesn't know I'm nothing. It doesn't know I'm oneness. Knowing that you're oneness is a big problem. Not a big problem, but it's problematic in terms of the overall awakened state of being, which doesn't have time to think I'm oneness. It just is oneness. You understand the difference? It's oneness. There's no satisfaction in it. There's nothing that goes, whew, oh, I'm totality. I'm the absolute. It can kind of go the other way and get you in trouble. It speaks itself. It never stops to reflect on itself. It doesn't have time to look back on what it is. It just is.
Well, because sometimes I say, I'll go, I'm nobody, nothing from nowhere.
That's identity too.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So we can be humble forces, and that's a nice thing to be, maybe, right. But it's still me. That's that. And I'm telling you, what we are is whatever's happening. What's happening. Period. And before it's understood and before it's brought into some kind of configuration, we're just... And that's kind of what energy is, just ongoing. And the most amazing thing about this energy that's ongoing is it's got love in it. It's got beauty in it. It's got joy in it. It's got everything else, too. It's got the whole shebang, But I can tell you, if you want to make conscious choices, you can make them toward that which is loving and compassionate and kind, as opposed to that which is mean-spirited and me over you and I don't care about anybody else. Those choices will create a lot of problems. The choice of compassion, love, openness, wow, gratitude Makes for an amazing life. Your choice, kind of. And there's a choice. You can build a character based on that, or you can just be that. And that's really kind of what we're aiming at. Be it, not become it, not inculcate it into a something. Let it just be, which you're sort of doing. And honestly, you're even doing it when you create a character, because the universe is, the oneness is doing it. So it's all happening, and it doesn't care, honestly, because it's nothing. There's no thing. So it doesn't care. So it's, what life do you want to be? And to a degree, the most you can do is just let go of the stuff that's in the way and just be. And you try that until there's no you letting go, until it's just happening. And that's what real awakening is. It's where there's no longer somebody having to let something go, trying to detach, trying to be humble, trying to be free. It's just there. You just know, oh, I am that. That's all. Oh, that's all. That's what I am. And it doesn't mean it'll wipe out you. You'll still be in the equation, but in a very different form if you would like to be. You can just be you, as opposed to you. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the idea. Anyone else?
Yeah, last time I sat with you, you talked a little bit about Shiva energy, the destroyer, and how it can destroy both internal and external constructs. Just wanted to ask you to talk maybe a little bit about, if you would, about what it is bringing us into alignment with, and...
Well, Shiva energy just takes what we call negative energy or destructive energy and gives it purpose, God purpose, in a way. It destroys, first of all, everything is impermanent, so it's a big part of impermanence. It destroys forests, it destroys bodies, it destroys people, it destroys minds. It's a destroyer, and it's pretty active. It also destroys, in the most beautiful sense, your sense of separate self. And it's not comfortable, usually. Destruction is not something human beings like. We like permanence, we like comfort, we like hope, we like all these things, and Shiva will ultimately take all of it away, except for the one thing it can't take away, which is what is. It can't take that away. I don't know how to speak to that because I don't even understand what I'm saying, but I know it's true. I know that the what is, the unfolding, is going to happen, and that is bigger than Shiva. Shiva is, in the triumvirate of Hindu gods, there's a creator, Brahma, there's Vishnu, a preserver, and Shiva, a destroyer, and they all work together. And we're all part of that. Every one of us who's alive in this world feels our birth. Well, you don't feel it, but you have a sense of it happening. You have a sense of things coming into being, staying there for a little bit, and then disintegrating. That's the thing that we're all aware of. That really is what is. That's the what is. And if you want to break it down into cognitive elements, Shiva is the part we don't like. But once you align with this idea of Shiva, once you say yes to Shiva, it will activate a lot of patterns in you that will start to free you from your idea of being Travis. And as much as you want that, you're not going to totally like it when it does that, because there are things about you that you really like, and that's all fine. But what will really start to happen when it starts to get rid of a lot of that is that there will be a sense of, oh, you don't have to do anything to be Travis. You really don't. There's nothing you have to do. You have to get up in the morning, kind of. You don't even have to do that, but because it'll wake you up, and the day will happen. Even if you don't think about it at all. If you completely forget your calendar for the day, you'll get messed up. You know, things will happen. The phone will ring, people will call, why didn't you do this? All that stuff will happen. But you don't kind of have to do very much. You just have to, okay, phone rang, calendar says to do this, do that, and you have a life. And so when they take you apart, as it will do ultimately, that thing is still going to be going on. It's going to still be happening until there is no material, bodily, mental, emotional person left. But, and I can only talk about this from conjecture, when that is gone, what is presence, being, I believe, goes on. I don't know that for an absolute fact, but my sense of it is that. But again, based on what do I know for certain, all I know is what is. So the Shiva ride, I have found the Shiva ride to be very painful. And it works all the time. This whole last 2 weeks I have been full of Shiva. In other words, it's what Shiva does, and a lot of people who this awakening thing is in no way a finality. So it keeps finding the corners of you that are still full of shit. And it just, and it points them out. But when you don't have a lot of resistance, Rudy would describe it as a stain on a white suit. You know what I mean? There you are, and you're walking around and everybody is looking at what? The stain. They're not looking at your beautiful white suit you just spent $3,000 for at Barney's. They're looking at the stain. You know? And so are you. And that stain is going to be observed in a very powerful way. And at some point you're going to take the suit off and go to the cleaners and get it cleaned off. You know, that's what we do. So it has to be seen, it has to be focused upon in order for it to ultimately be eradicated. And it will be. And it's a beautiful process, and you get smoother and smoother, unless you identify with your smoothness and your freedom, and then it'll show itself to you. Shiva will come in and say, you know, look what you're doing, and you won't like it. Trust me, I don't like it. But it's really powerful, and it does wipe the slate clean. Anyone else? Okay, as always, thank you guys for coming.